Good evening, everybody. I'm actually getting started on time today. So we've got a bunch of stuff kind of to do. I've got we will be, just for clarity, we will be going back to House of Light today. I just maybe I'll talk a little bit about some game developments, I guess, because it's been a really wonderful time to be a gamer. Rift of the Necrodancer came out this week, and I did get the sort of the deluxe edition of Civilization 7. So I spent a little bit of time on that recently. Not enough to form an opinion. I am noticing that it's always been true that that Civilization games are not popular when they first come out. But this one seems to be particularly intense. And I will actually say, on the note, I think definitely the response is overdone. Um, I think I would not be fair to it wouldn't be unfair, or it would be fair to say, is what I'm trying to say. It would be fair to say that the UI that people are talking about really doesn't seem to have that same polish that Civ 6 did. But what I'm willing to say, I was talking with a friend of mine. This is actually the first time, so I think this is the first time that they have gotten into a Civ game kind of at the ground floor after playing Civ. And it was kind of interesting because while I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it while I was playing, the more I talked about it with my friend, the more I think I kind of started to get an idea of where they were going with it. There's some things I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about, and I do definitely have the feeling that after a few DLC, this will probably be one that people do quite like, because this has traditionally happened with Civilization. But the funny thing is that the more that I talked with my friend, the more I think I kind of started to get what they might be doing. And this is my hot take off of, even, I think I've got less than an hour play inside of it, but I actually think that this might be one of the, I think out of the mainstream releases of Civilization, I mean the numbered sequels, this one actually could be the closest to sort of Sid Meier's vision for Civilization than we've seen in quite some time. And my justification for saying that is that if you take a look at the games that are actually designed by Sid Meier, so I never played the original Civilization, I have seen like videos of it, but I would say that it doesn't seem that different from Civilization Revolutions that I played on DS. And in fact, there's a Revolutions 2. I have it on my tablet, actually. And I can't necessarily say that the Revolutions games have ever been my favorite, but I was very interested in how simplified they were. And what I didn't realize for Revolutions, particularly for Revolutions 2, it's Sid Meier designing those ones. Those are the ones where I think most people know sort of famously the series goes through different developers. So I believe Brian Reynolds had done Civilization 2. He also did Alpha Centauri, but that wouldn't be sort of one of the numbered sequels I'm talking about. He might have been scheduled for 3, but I know there were a large number of departures, up to and including Reynolds. So I don't actually recall the name of the lead on 3. Soren Johnson did number 4, obviously a very well-regarded one, and he returned to 4X with Old World. John Schaefer then did number 5, and I believe he released a 4X called John Schaefer's At the Gates. Well, somebody better let him in. Although that kind of, I think that had very large ambitions, and I don't think it really found its audience, and so ultimately didn't, I think, meet the potential that people saw in that project. I mean, it would be interesting to see if Conifer Games keeps going on, and because I know he struggled quite a bit getting to that. And it was Ed Beach who did Civilization 6. Of course, Ed Beach came to the series from board games, so he did a rather famous one about the Reformation called Here I Stand. I actually have a copy of it. But this is actually the first time that Ed Beach was the lead designer again. This is the first time that's happened, unless you want to count Civ 2 and Alpha Centauri. Oh, for heaven's sake, it looks like I've got another... Okay, there was a bit of a problem with the frame rate. If you're wondering, I do tend to babble at the start, but I did want to... I tried something with my VPN to try and make sure that there wouldn't be problems. And I saw something scary for a little bit. Let me just tab out for a minute. Okay, we seem to be okay. But yeah, so anyways, it's an interesting time, but I think it's fair to say that as the Civ series has gone on, you know, people are building on it. There's sort of the famous you know, what is it? Keep a third, improve a third, add a third rule for the series. But I do feel that this is a Civ game that really took a look. So there's been these incremental changes in terms of some of the features of Civ over time. So I think number 5 might have been the first one to introduce hexes, and I think it also unstacked armies. And that was a huge controversial change at the time. And then of course Civ 6 unstacked cities, which I don't think anybody would have thought that was possible. But now that, you know, the districts are something that were kind of taken for granted, 7 effectively removes builders, but does so in a way that doesn't really feel like you're actually losing. Like, I don't really feel like I'm losing anything doing that. Some of the narrative stuff I thought might have been interesting, but it really doesn't. I actually thought the narrative stuff was more interesting in oh, heaven's sake, what was it? Beyond Earth. So I don't know if it's the fact that it's the historical setting or not. But yeah, it's I'm really looking forward to doing that. I partly wanted to talk about that because Civ is really a favorite game of mine. It's one that almost is gaming to me because it's been something almost, maybe even my entire gaming life, I've had some kind of Civilization game to play. So obviously it's disappointing to see the reaction from players like that, especially because for publications it seems to have actually reviewed quite well. And I always hate that rhetoric that says, oh, they didn't pay for it, so they don't need to, you know, they're biased. I'm like, I don't think people realize, like, I don't want to disrespect any of the keys that I've gotten. I'm very grateful when developers do that. But, you know, even for a AAA game, like, at least if you work kind of like a white collar job, if you work a reasonable enough job, like, it's not that many hours of work to get a full game, even like a deluxe edition with all the goodies. Like, it's not that hard. Again, I always feel bad for that because I understand there's actually a very wide range of people who watch this channel, and I never want to make it seem like a game is no big thing, because I also understand for some people that individual game is going to be like the one that you get for a long time. You really want to make sure that it's a good one, or you wait until it's on sale or something. But insofar as there is the reviewers are shills because they got, you know, a AAA game, like, I just don't feel that the incentives are aligned that way, right? That's what I mean by that. It's not that I want to say games shouldn't be valued. I mean, I think games should be valued both by their players and also in terms of making sure that people are fairly compensated for them. But this idea that you're going to alter your view in order to get the review copy, I don't really feel holds a lot of water. It's not something that's held true for me anyway. But anyways, I did do the digression. I'm sadly not going to do Civilization on stream. It's a game that I love, but it is one that I think it's never going to be one that I can play for enjoyment. It's going to be one that is going to be, it's going to attract a certain type of viewer, and it's going to be one that I feel very bad playing with. So I did do that divergence on Rift of the Necrodancer. I will be returning to that, but I did want to commit to Book of Hours, and we are doing that now. And obviously, I'm not only just starting on time, but I'm feeling better than before. I was quite tired. I didn't get a full night's sleep last night, but I am looking forward to doing a nice full stream today. But I do also need to... Okay, yes, we finished the salon. All right. So I'm actually trying to remember what I was going to do. Oh, yes. Okay. No, we've got our lessons. We're going to learn some lessons. Okay, so Furs and Feathers seems like it was going to go to Inks of Power. Or did I already queue up the book? Looks like I've already queued up the books too. Okay, let's just unpause and watch the magic happen. Mrs. Kill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. Midwife's assistant's as somber as autumn, as kind as autumn. She also likes her beer. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. So just as a reminder about what we decided on Monday, so Furs and Feathers will be used to upgrade Inks of Power. Sand Stories will upgrade itself. Edicts Martial will... Sorry, I just got a very nice message from a friend. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. Okay, so Furs and Feathers to Inks of Power, Sand Stories to increase itself. Edicts Martial goes to Pearl and Tide. Edicts Martial's already at 9. Sharps goes to Inks of Containment. Auroral Contemplations goes to Disciplines of the Hammer. And Glazery and Lightsmithing goes to Lockworks and Clockworks. I may change the order of that around a little bit because we do have the sunny day. But at this point, let's work with what we got. So partly what I want to do here is get to autumn, although we at least have the Oriflamme's order. There 'tis and give me no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. So, but yeah, so I don't, I'm in this weird little halfway space where I don't want to just play the game on fast forward to get to the, I don't want to play on fast forward to just sort of get to the next event, but I do want to get to a point where we're engaging with the Lighthouse Institute a bit more. And so my aim here is we'll start by leveling up the different skills that I can. We'll read the books accordingly. We've already done the research, so I think I have a fairly clear idea of where I want to go as far as the overall story goes. I should have done... Oh, you know what? I should have done a consideration. Okay, well, you know what? We'll... I'm not going to worry about that now. I'm also going to change up the ordering here. Okay. But yeah, so the way I kind of see this going is that I'll let the the lore kind of sink out of the various books as I read them. Obviously, Oriflammes may sort of give me some more information or more detail that I want. I think I was working on something where I was reading all of the various rooms as well. That might not be a bad idea once I get the leveling done. I can't remember where I finished off, but I don't know. I'll make a decision on that. Um, but yeah, the aim is going to be that we can advance to a let's say an event every 2 or 3 seasons rather than every couple of years. So anyways, let's focus on the leveling that we want to do. The Temptations of Architecture. The antiquarian and nyctodomist Ambrose Westcott writes of the dangers of doors with particular reference to a house in the Bounds named Treowin. No doubt they have come to regret the ambitions of their winding stair. Even now in Treowin, a silver sea is unwisely visible from a rash window. Westcott explains that the wheel locks, the charge holders of Treowin, have had recourse to dramatic measures to prevent oniric encroachment, removing the entire top floor of the building. Nevertheless, he writes, the business of the Moon Hall has begun to touch the other business of the house. Three Flowers Hath the Tree. Ernestine Peterhans records her observations of the growth of trees and flowers of the Isle, the omens and portents she attempts to draw from them, particularly the yew tree in Earl Brian's meadow, whose flowerings are sometimes eccentric. Ernestine observes that in years when the tree flowers black, troubling secrets arise. When it flowers red, war and fires follow, and that no de Wolf heir has ever been born in a year when it flowers white. Ernestine attempts to use the tree's growth to advantage in her business affairs, but it fails. She is evidently very concerned when Hendrik de Wolf's grandson Giles runs off with the pale trollop Hafren in a year when the tree flowers white. She begins to fear she has entirely misinterpreted all the relevant omens. She is deeply concerned for the continuation of the de Wolf line and prays for Giles' return. The world does not weep. Brown Joshua found this in a well in Hamath. There's an unlikely story that it was abandoned by Alexander during his retreat from Issus. The unknown adept who wrote this proclaims, the world forgets, but the ivory dove does not. The text contains a number of prescriptions for ensuring that certain acts are remembered, including a rite which requires a sacrifice in a particularly monstrous mode. The Hours tried to bury the memory of what happened to the flint, the wheel, the tide, and the seven coiled, but the dove won't permit it. Nor will he permit what happened to the first egg to be forgotten, although it is perhaps the one thing the watchman might ever forgive. Sorry, I just got a bunch of messages. Jamie, how you doing tonight? Okay, sorry, I have one really quick thing I want to deal with here, and then I can be back to the game. I didn't want to divide my attention like this, but... Okay, I think we are good. Recordings from the Althaban Abyss, recordings from a subterranean space in the mountains near Baghdad of conversations between the entomologist Juliana Zawadzowski and an unidentified presence. Only Zawadzowski's part in the conversations is comprehensible to the listener. The other side consists of grating, buzzing, and rumbling sounds, perhaps only rock movements or artifacts of the recording process, which, Zawadzowski nevertheless unhesitatingly translates. Zawadzowski seems to believe that the presence identifies itself as a name or remnant of the lost hour called Seven Coils. It pleads with her to assist its rebirth. It begs her to find something for it in the city of Emesa. Toward the end of the interview, Zawadzowski grows suspicious and repeatedly accuses the presence of not being the Seven Coils at all, only an inhabitant. The recording ends mid-sentence. All right, I need to step away for one quick minute because I actually forgot to do something. But I won't put up the break sign or anything. It will be very brief. Alas, my headphones always drop whenever I set them aside. Okay, we are now ready to focus. The sea does not regret. Isan Fekri, one-time Secretary Salvant of the Curia of the Isle, responsible for the Curia's healing efforts, writes of his experiences in Brandkrug and hints at his travels elsewhere. The sea does not regret the tide, Fekri writes, for when the tide has passed, it leaves its traces on the sand, which traces are the sea's memory. Fekri is a keen fisherman and speaks glowingly of the fish suppers of Brandkrug. He also admits that his enthusiasm for the bounty of the sea has altered him, that before he came to Brandkrug, he consumed only those things found in the earth. I was the greater thereby, but all of us give up what we were to become what we are. On Matthias and the Amethyst Imago, Loss, an account of an occult romance. A certain Para, son of Aaron, claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Damascene branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who rejected their past and future. The laws of the house forbade Matthias to love, the customs of the wood forbade the Imago to remain, so he conjured her a final time, when she had uncovered the shears of Alcapura, and she suffered him to cut the wings from her back so that she might remain, and he suffered her to cut the parts which hold man's seed to keep them from the detestable act. This was love in all its blood and joy. We have cast out Matthias from the house. In the cradle of the roots, Matthias and the Imago left their names, and though their names were lost, they found their name-day riddles. This we recall in solution and separation, so that in the presence of the moth our memories may become our futures. Do this wisely, in memory of the name and the long who gave up their past, that they may be together forgotten. The Concursum Diaries, the diaries of the explorer and murderer Lars Westergren. He's unhelpfully translated them into Frisian for privacy. There are map legends, there are maps of legends, and there are legends of maps. Aspects of the Mansus subsist in all of these, in much the same way that you find water in a swamp and in a cup and in the sky. Westergren describes a series of expeditions to the Mansus. He focuses on the details of the experience, the colors, the vistas, the textures, rather than the practicalities. He does warn that the Mansus changes each year, although he assures the reader that the doors have always been the same. Doors may close, but they never disappear, at least not while there have been mortals in the Mansus. We're like mice. The Ascendant, the Edgelong Dardash, boasts of her victories over her brother enemy Tareg in the days of the Shadowless Empire. Sweeter than wine, than nectar is the blood of my brother. We've raised up armies one against another. We have sated the Blackbone with the sinking of our ships. Dardash's boasting at length turns melancholy, and Edgelong is half a dyad. She may not defeat her hated brother enemy without ending herself. She doesn't even want to, but she is aware, to her frustration, that she is a piece on the board, an axle on the ox cart, an essential part of the eternal engine of contention which the lionsmith and colonel use to sustain the world. Glimmerings, an anonymous prison diary written by a dreamer convicted of oniric irresponsibility and confined to the cucurbit. The prisoner is plainly terrified and bewildered by their situation, and has been unable to wrangle a coherent explanation out of anyone, but the dreams keep coming, and they keep writing them down. Snow, broken mirrors, half-heard sky music, flowers of white, red, and black, a blood-streaked winter dawn, the most notorious signifiers of oniric risk, fantastically vivid and detailed. No wonder they were locked up. Their final recorded dream is of a worm jewel beneath Brandkrug Isle, which they open with a key carved from their fingerbone. And a tower rises. The phonograph is packaged in glossy card, the bright pink of a dog rose, with the words "A tower rises" in 9 languages on both sides. There is no other identifying information at all. A recording of uncertain origin, inexplicably compelling poetry recorded by a speaker with a high, sweet voice that scales up beyond human hearing in the language called Vak, which it probably isn't spoken by more than a few dozen living scholars. The poem speaks about the wheel that the wheel that turns, the coil that turns, the tide that returns, egg that returns. It speaks of a cloven sky, an opened heart, a dream of glittering eyes, speaks lastly of its own conclusion, when it might be spoken in dreams before a deep door by a messenger of histories. Okay. So for starters, let's get that Inks of Power leveling. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. Improve the skill to level 7. Okay, so I want to be a little thoughtful in terms of the next step of this plan. I don't think I have enough to be able to level up the next skill. Obviously, with Sand Stories, I'm going to need both Rose and Moth. And I think on Monday I might have actually reviewed this, and I think we have a lot of conflicting aspects. So Pearl and Tide, for instance, is going to need Rose and Moon, but so is Sand Stories. Inks of Containment can use Winter and Moon, but again, there's that Moon overlap. That's a bit of... Well, I guess that's why we got the Bittersweet Certainty. Disciplines of the Hammer is Edge and Forge, so that's a little bit of a different one. That one I kind of get some of these for free, although the Edge stuff... well, I guess I can use a Fear, but Fear we can also get from Mrs. Kill, so I maybe don't want to work on that right away. I guess the one difference here would be Lockworks and Clockworks with the Knock is pretty wide open. But let's just go through the list. I think I don't need to get too clever with this stuff. So Sand Stories, we want Moon and Rose. So we've got a Moon here, we've got a Moon here, and we've got a Moon here. We need 3 more with Rose. So I believe if we use a... I believe we can do the Matter and Deeds of Serpents. So, Knock, a familiar passage. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. So that's one of the 3 that I need. So next up, again, I want to be kind of thoughtful in terms of how I approach this. I suppose the Confounding Parable would be the next one, and we can't use a phonograph for that because I've used the VAC. I'm also just trying to avoid reading the same book over and over again. There are some, like for Bittersweet Certainty, where I don't really have any options, but where I can, I'd like to try and I think we're on to Snare of the Tree. Anyways, that's 2 of 3. So again, if I can get a Moon or a Rose that isn't generated by Mrs. Kill, that's best. But I think I've exhausted those options. Oh, actually, we don't have a contradiction yet. No, sorry, we do have a contradiction. So we have the Salt. So I think what I'll do for the Rose, we'll get another Intuition here. Does this concur some diaries? Yeah, so on to Against the Sisterhood of the Knot. Okay, so what that was for, that was the Sand Stories group. And because Pearl and Tide has the same requirement, we're just leaving that completely alone next. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to prepare for Inks of Containment. Now again, I'm not going to be able to get all of the Moon that I want, but I at least want to have whatever foundation I can laid for Inks of Containment. So with that, we're going to go for First of all of these are already spoken for. So foresight, patterns, don't have a need for fear yet. We've already got satisfaction. We don't have regret yet, though, so I think we are on to the 12 letters of necessity. Or, sorry, 12 letters on consequence. Impulses doesn't help our immediate needs. We did have the option of getting the Karashim portal on, incidentally, if we needed the rose. Actually, I'm going to get that, because the intuition can help me with moon for something else. Okay, on to... I can never remember these. I guess it's the second glory? No, it should have been Nin's cages. All right. I'll try to remember that for next time. Okay, now I think that's it for our winter and moon angle. So that's the inks of containment accounted for. Which brings me to disciplines of the hammer. So I'm going to prioritize edge and forge that can't be generated by Mrs. Kill, because disciplines of the hammer is actually further down the road. So that means foresight is off the table for now, but patterns are not. Which of these do I want to do? Let's do traveling at night 3. Or actually, hang on. I can't remember if I did Songs of the Carapace Cross, but we'll try that one. I probably did, now that I think of it, but anyways. Okay, so again, the foresight isn't on the list, and I don't think there are any other 4G ones right now. And so the reason I felt okay doing that is we have a bunch of books with songs, which are also an option for me. So let's go for our tryst. A whist would have worked as well. We will do the unhatched hymns on this one. And then when it comes to our music players, we'll do our old friends, the Invisible Opera. That one we can use the health. And while I would have preferred to do a book with the beguiling melody, circumstances have meant that I should focus on what I have immediately available. I, of course, do have the option of getting the fear again, but I'm happy with this choice. And I think we need to use the shaft this time. So I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Now, another thing that I can do after the 30 seconds, I'm actually going to try and get a touch. So I might do that for the soft blue sofa. So this is why we don't go for fear. So again, I said that earlier, that when I have someone like Mrs. Kill in the mix, I don't want to avoid leveling something up. Just because we have so many lessons, it's better for me to just make progress and take advantage of any opportunities that come up instead of building specifically for them. But when it comes to something like, say, the disciplines of the hammer, I know it's going to take me a while to get to a point where I can level that up. And so having Mrs. Kill generate something like fear, and likewise with the gossip and a couple of these other ones, this at least sort of helps build up the reserve, sort of that floor that I'm working from. So where I can, I like to essentially the ranking that I do is this. I have a lesson that I'm working towards, And so that one, I'm going to get the memories that I need. Priority goes to the ones that can't be generated by the visitors or the assistants first. And then, but I'm willing to do something like get a foresight if I know that I need a forge. So that would be disciplines of the hammer, for instance, would be an example of that. Once I have sort of my runway out of the way, right? So that makes sure that within a minute I'm going to be able to level up a skill. I'll then start focusing on the next lessons. And again, the priority for those goes for the things that can't be generated by the visitors. But usually I'm not going to be able to get enough to level them up all on their own. And so with that in mind, I sort of say it's like, okay, if there's a second or a third in the queue, I'll maybe prioritize getting those first. And that's because now we're looking at about 2 or 3 minutes. You get 4 draws from the conversation with with your assistant. And it's much more likely that that one lesson that you need is going to come out of the out of that 4 attempt or 4 draw run than it is the single one. So it's basically playing the odds. Doesn't always work, and it's not, in the end, I play this game in a very, very unique way. I think it's arguably more enjoyable to play this game to just go with the flow. But in this case here, it does stop me from running into that moment where, like, I know I don't have the minute that I need to get that last memory. So it's something that works for me. At least it's the way that I've been using. It's the way that I've been playing this particular run. So I'm going to put Mrs. Kill up here just because we've got a really full sundries section. Okay, on the matter and deeds of serpents. This is probably the prophecies of the Naga rendered into English and illustrated by William Midnight in Paris in the 1880s, but it shows a number of divergences from that text. It's certainly quite recent by the standards of VAC texts. The serpent folk called the Great Hooded Princes came to know the order called the House of Leith and warred across the miles with them. They made an alliance with the mother of ants whose children they had been. The text describes how the Great Hooded Princes escaped, or will escape, from the fifth history where they had died, or were doomed to die. They engaged in a secret conquest of the land of the Great River, called India in some histories, and have ensured that all other conquests of that land are false conquests. The Snare of the Tree collected proverbs of Aunt Mopsy. Once in the wood we call a visit, twice in the wood we call a journey, thrice we call coming home. Every timber has its knots, the straight and the crooked both. Every weave is more absence than thread. You can't keep nowhere out any more than you can keep somewhere in. When the cuckoo learns the nightingale's song, our sleep is sweeter than honey. Against the sisterhood of the knot and the foulness of their depraved customs, Hieronymus Pseudo-Hypnerotomachus wrote this furious screed about the sinister influence of the sisterhood of the knot on his own Church of the Unconquered Sun. Hieronymus claims that the powers served by the Sisterhood of the Knot made an arrangement. The Thunderskin loved the ewe, and the Grail destroyed him, as restitution for the destruction of the Axe's loved ones. Hieronymus's writing becomes incoherent with rage at this point. Hieronymus recovers his composure, eventually, to describe how the Thunderskin entered the mansis through the peacock door. This, Hieronymus insists, is abomination upon abomination, but then that most abominable of doors has always been an abomination. The Lake Fusino recordings of the folk dances of the Fusine marshes. The wailing of flutes, the roaring of drums, cries like birds lost in the marshes. These are the songs the sisters sang to the witch, that the Thunderskin roared to the sky, the songs with which the Dwendazons of the mansis keep their vigil. Once heard, they are not forgotten. On Matthias and the Amethyst Imago, Pursuit, an account of an occult romance, a certain mech claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Theban branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who use the arts of water to conceal themselves. Matthias defied us to hunt the names of the moth in the wood to populate his pinned collection. The Amethyst Imago had dallied with the witch and sister, but she'd returned to the wood to plead the moth's pardon. The moth, as a whim or a penance, set sent her out to lure the Long to a slough of nightmares. Matthias loved the Imago. Did he? Can Long love? Or has that organ of their soul desiccated beyond repair? The Imago loved Matthias. Did she? Or did she only enact a whim? He pursued her through the wood, but at last they turned aside from the nightmare slough and lay together where the bounds grow bright. So they learnt the Grail's pleasures, and this is the lore they won. A second glory, the priest Jusei celebrates the extirpation of the gods who were stone, those hours who preceded humanity. Jusei engages in an apologia for the destruction of the hours. They were old, they were cowardly, they were vile, their time had passed, and it was the shining destiny of humankind to seize the house through glorious battle. Jusei recounts how the hour called Seven Coils was slain in battle by the colonel, how the egg devoured the hour called Tide, and how the egg unhatching fled like a coward. He's quite vituperative about the egg unhatching. He warns darkly against its return. The 12 Letters on Consequence, Julian Cosley's epistolatory treatise on what may come after, addressed to his once friend Claude Hersault, the mystic and antiquarian. By the time he wrote these letters, Cosley was identified with the Onerio-political worms movement and Hersault with the birds, meaning roughly that Hersault held the order of the hours to be desirable, and Cosley held it to be oppressive. Many of Cosley's arguments about consequence and finality are couched in erudite and practical alchemical terms. Others appear to be thinly veiled threats directed at Hersault. Some are both. The Songs of the Carapace Cross, Micah Z, sometimes called the Magus of Quartz, etched this work in acid on stone. It has been reproduced many times in many languages since, but the reproductions are often lost to landslides. Z describes the rites of the gods who were stone, the first hours, as practiced before the existence of human civilization by the Carapace Cross. He claims a final survivor of the cross shared the information with him. The rites are largely obsolete now. Few have been observed, in the last 1,000 years at least, to have any effect at all. Nevertheless, Z identifies at least one invocation of particular power. He warns that it should be used with caution, lest the gods who were stone might find their way back from nowhere. Unhatched hymns, hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Menascate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next. Madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the Menascate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Menascate as the sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. The Invisible Opera, unfinished recording. A recording of a 1911 attempt at a performance of Wings Within Wings, the so-called Invisible Opera. The singers complete the skewbald aria Beneath Our Skin and A Rose in Maya without incident, but the Invisible Opera is dedicated to Pharisref the Magpie, who delights in unexpected interruptions. The recording ends with a clamor of horrified voices, a grating metallic screech, and a soft buzzing that fades into burring silence. Okay, so I'm going to give it 0.5 seconds just to get my touch. A soft blue sofa gently complements the seas and the skies around Brandkrug. Ambrose Westcott ordered the destruction of Valentine's bed for reasons he did not choose to articulate. Much later, Brian Levinson had the sofa installed so he could nap here. Touch. Craft is learnt through the tips of the fingers. Okay, so again, the priority here was to level up Sand Stories, which we will do now. I think I'm going to use Trist in this case, just because I have one extra. And we will use, so the Secret Threshold, before I do Secret Threshold, actually, let's use the Gossip. Yeah, we'll use the Secret Threshold. I think I kind of have to use all of these. So I hung on to the Confounding Parable because that's one that Mrs. Kill isn't going to generate. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. Improve the skill to level 7. Sorry, just trying to order this around things that might get replaced. Okay, so this brings us to a similar, not exactly dilemma, but so in one sense, one of the things I'd like to work on is Pearl and Tide, but I actually think it might make a little more sense for me to try and work on Inks of Containment at this point, because we do have some winter going for us. So here we've got the Bittersweet Certainty, the Hindsight, and the Regret. We could also employ the Confounding Parable. So from that, we'll do the same routine. So let's, we'll get the contradiction first. So, such a hardship to read those indignities perpetrated by the deceitful fraternity of obliviots. I'm not going to do the stolen secret quite yet because I can get that both from the recordings, but that's also something that Mrs. Kill may generate. So I want to see if we can work on the Inks of Containment. We've got, sorry, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I actually just need one more moon. And of course the answer there would be salt. So I actually have everything that we need for Inks of Containment now. So it might not be a bad idea. Well, actually, if we're going to be going on to Disciplines of the Hammer, that means I should be thinking about getting another moon. So in that case, let's actually lock into one of the choices here. I will do the Velletri interviews to get the stolen secret. Okay, so we've got... I need 7 for Disciplines of the Hammer. I have 2, so I need 5 more. I'm also starting to run out of options here. So again, Edge and Forge here. So in this case, this is where I'm willing to use the... this is where I'm willing to use the Foresight. So sorry, I think I said I had 2, so that's 3. Oh, sorry, I was mistaken. 3, 4, 5, so I just need 2 more. Well, I can get the Regret again. So that's 6. I feel like I'm missing something very obvious here. Edge and Forge. Okay, so... So, the final understanding doesn't help me here. And I'd like to hang on to the Avenue of Inquiry. So let's go for the Practic Garden dummy. and short on the winning move. Okay, so in that case, winning move here. We will use the health for the... So I realize we read this recently, but I'm taking advantage of the spare slot. Okay, so that should get me ready to go for Disciplines the Hammer. So now we should think about Lockworks and Clockworks, and that I want to load up on Sky. So we've kind of done all of the muse. Well, not entirely. I can get a Wistful Air as well. Do Those Who Do Not Weep. That gets me a Storm. We'll get the Solace from the house. I'm just trying to remember. I'm really reluctant to give up a few of these. We'll use the health in this case, I think. It doesn't feel great to have some open desks like this, but I actually think I'm... Well, you know what? For the sake of it, let's do a Faust here. And... yeah, I think at this point I actually do need to wait it out. It's a little lopsided in terms of how I'm doing my plans for today, but I want to take advantage of the sunny day for Lockworks and Clockworks. Okay, that Solace is probably going to get eaten up. So the good news for Lockworks and Clockworks is it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we basically just need 2 memories for that. Alright, the skill is now level 7. Its power aspects have also increased. Actually, what I could be doing is reading a secret threshold book, but I'm not going to do that now. I've already got the touch. I don't have another need for Forge. I'm just trying to think if there's something with the consider verb that I can do to push me ahead for... let's just leave it alone. All right, not great, but... Oh yeah, actually I'm doubling up a few of these here because I'm not going to be able to level up the... Okay, you know what? This is such a dumb way for me to do this, but... No, actually... Okay. If I try to do... Oh, God. Lockworks and Clockworks. So if I take the pattern, the confounding parable. Okay. This is like reckless, and this is going to just mess up my whole system. but I believe this will save me a couple of duplicates. Although I think I'm still down the regret. But I'm just kind of recognizing the time here, and I want to get myself a couple of outside options. Okay, yeah, so we lost the regret no matter what. Those indignities perpetrated by the deceitful fraternity of obliviates. Excuse me, it's not clear whether CROD, who is identified here only by his initials, was in fact an initiate of the Obliviate Order of Immortal Adepts. He wrote in the 16th century after the order, if he is to be believed, had passed the height of its power. 58, that they did claim inheritance from the traditions of the House of Leith, but that they have disregarded both its most sacred and its most beautiful ceremonies where they are not found convenient. 59. 71. The Glassfinger toxic is no mere assassin's convenient for the Oblividiots to confine to the disposal of their enemies. It has higher uses. Certainly it is a great matter of winter, but I've already outlined the technique by which it may be fitted for its ultimate destiny. All right, the Wistful Air is kind of actually, no, the Rose, yeah, I should have been working on that earlier, actually. The Crossing to Noon, the mystic Garcia Sauri, gives a picturesque account of the adventures of Franklin Bancroft, the Prince of Wines, and Ava de Wolf, the Pale Lady, on their way to the hidden island of Noon. For a long time, the Blackbone pondered her next move until the moon dared to peep from behind a cloud, and the prince completed the composition of his third sestina. But the lady met the blind gaze of its open pores, waiting for the tide. Garcia Sauri acknowledges in an epilogue that it is widely known that Ava in fact tragically drowned herself and her twin infant granddaughters without ever making such a journey. But he adds contemptuously that it is also widely known that the city unbuilt will so remain, that only one history is ever written, and that Janus is a Mansus prank. The Carmine Petal Unexpurgated, a project proposed by Lionel of the Society of the Noble Endeavor, by which he claims he succeeded in creating a sanctuary for a fugitive forge name, the unexpurgated version. At the time the book was written, a fugitive forge name would have been guilty of heresy, treason, or both. Lionel suggests that the House of Iron and Fire so created would include Hollows of Air and Night, which would serve as a final hiding place if the larger sanctuary were uncovered, though he says they could be easily revealed with invocations of the disciplines either of Scar or of Hammer. The Velletri interviews, interrogation of a man named Lacombe, a former Nocturnal Branch inspector now identified as terminally robogoid. Lacombe is not especially lucid, and the state called robagoia evidently includes a malady of the lungs which causes coughing fits. He weakens audibly over the course of the interrogation. He is questioned about the disposition of various unsanctioned items recovered from a Nocturnal Branch raid on a castle at Ortuccio in the region of the Fucine Marshes. He is, however, defiant as well as incoherent. Lacombe insists that the items have been put to good use. He derides Nocturnal Branch as the lackeys of Calyptra. Alarmingly, during the last few minutes of the interrogation, he begins to insist that his interrogator should burn the library. He waxes enthusiastic about the fire he wants to see, leading to a final coughing fit, after which the interview abruptly ends. Those Who Do Not Sleep, the mystic Broadnax, discusses the origins of the Sister and Witch and of the Thunderskin. The Sister and Witch were born in two wombs, one poor, one rich, across the sea. The Sister was stronger in the aspect of heart, and so their survival was assured. The Witch was stronger in the aspect of Grail, and so they were not satisfied. When the Sister and Witch came west, the Red Grail permitted their ascension, but then grew jealous of their power. It lured a great musician into the ranks of its names and caused him to be reborn from blood as a heart hour so that the Grail might maintain dominion there also, but its victory is not assured. The Mirror of Melissenth, the daybook and dream journal of Abbess Melissenth, venerated as a saint and respected as an alchemist. Melissenth speaks longingly of those we would call from behind the sky. Melissenth claims that the sights and sensations arts, which she describes, can be used to invoke the dream of a star when sufficient sky aspect is invoked to uplift an ascendant harmony. Lady Ava's Repose, a meditation on the drowning of Lady Ava de Wolf and her two grandchildren, written in the years when the estate was abandoned by Father Theo, once the de Wolf family chaplain, one of the few to remain on the isle in those desolate years. There are so many stories of her heritage, so many rumors of her persistence, we might easily choose to believe that the grand twins escaped, even that they live yet beyond the sea. Father Theo has come to believe that Ava sought an escape from a family curse, the pale heritage of Haffren, her forebear, or the curse placed on the line by the cunning man Red William in the time of Hendrik de Wolf. He had begun by believing neither curse was real, but as the book concludes, he decides that he is determined to believe in them, rather than accept the 3 deaths as a futile tragedy. One does not so easily escape the long necessity of faith, he concludes. And recordings from the Altheiban Abyss, recordings from a subterranean space in the mountains near Baghdad of conversations between the entomologist Juliana Zawadzowski and an unidentified presence. Only Zawadzowski's part of the conversations is comprehensible to the listener. The other side consists of grating, buzzing, and rumbling sounds, perhaps only rock movements or artifacts of the recording process, which Zawadzowski nevertheless unhesitatingly translates. Zawadzowski seems to believe that the presence identifies itself as a name or remnant of the lost hour called Seven Coils. It pleads with her to assist its rebirth. It begs her to find something for it in the city of Emisa. Towards the end of the interview, Zawadzowski grows suspicious and repeatedly accuses the presence of being not the Seven Coils at all, only an inhabitant. The recording ends mid-sentence. Okay, so I'm gonna want to organize myself a little bit. So one thing for me to keep in mind here is that I do have the winning move. So let's come up with a pile for Disciplines of the Hammer. So that would be 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. Okay, better still. Let's do the... do I want to do Pearl and Tide or the Inks of Containment? Let's try Inks of Containment first. This doesn't help me anymore. That's such a shame. I've got 4 of the 6 required for Pearl and Tide. Okay, so let's focus on things that we can lock into the into an upgrade. So Inks of Containment would take Bittersweet Certainty, which has no other use. Hindsight, again, no other use. So I can give up the Contradiction, that's 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we're giving up a lot for that, but that's fine. Sorry, I'm just going to take a second here to make sure that I'm not messing up. Hey, Kibble and Bricks, good to see you. Folks, for those of you who don't know, Kibble and Bricks was streaming Book of Hours not too long ago. Very kindly responded to the... I never want to, like, you know, obviously when you host someone, there's never the expectation that they come back, but Kibble was actually also kind enough to... So asked, I actually like seeing this question a lot, asked whether or not you can have the music enabled while you stream the game. And this is because I do feel kind of strongly about intellectual property rights. Like I've never been comfortable with the fact that streaming kind of has this implied threat that, you know, the creators... you know, can't really dispute the use of their IP, even like basically the implied threat is that the audience is going to make things tough for them if they enforce their rights. Now, obviously, it's smart to have people stream your game, and most people want streamers to stream their game. But the point I make is that like that should be the choice of the developer. It shouldn't be just the, you know, like Twitch is effectively founded on very, very loose attitudes to intellectual property rights. And of course, there are some games which will pay for the rights to play the music in the game, but not to broadcast it. And in fact, Book of Hours ran into this problem where there were they weren't copyright strikes, they were just sort of warnings about the copyright. And that was just because I think it was SOCAN was managing it. Anyways, it was an error, but obviously that kind of made everyone quite nervous. So all of that is to say, I actually really do appreciate it when people ask questions like that, because in the end, it's just taking that time to care about the other side, or at the very least, it's just trying to avoid some kind of copyright issue. But I am happy to say, Kibble. I'll get into my session in just a minute here, but just to follow up on the Reddit comment, that this lovely music that you're listening to is actually by it's a group called Mickey Mar Productions. I believe it's specifically Mary Beth Solomon, who's a Canadian, as am I, and has been working with the developer of this game, Weather Factory, specifically Alexis Kennedy and Lottie Bevan, since Alexis founded Fail Better Games, and Lottie was a producer there. So Mary Beth Solomon has prepared music for Sunless Sea, as well as the game before this one, Cultist Simulator, and of course now Book of Hours. So wonderful soundtrack, and definitely interesting creators that I've really enjoyed following over the years. So as far as my session, I've actually been playing this session since the closed beta for this game. So I had to go into the files and mess around a little bit with my Lighthouse Institute, because my Lighthouse Institute didn't have all of the roles. And in fact, there was not a secretary persistent slot. So the way Cultist Simulator and Book of Hours works is that there's... I think I actually might have hosted you because of the Canadian side. Did you have a tag for that? If not, I was just happy to see somebody streaming Book of Hours. But anyways, that's wonderful to hear, Kibble and Bricks. I'm based in Ontario, so I just got my bribe in the mail today. Yeah, I was originally from BC, but yeah, so there you go. There's a Canadian angle to this, where the developers are based in the UK, but the person who did the music is I believe, a Toronto-based musician, and has actually been working in film and games for quite some time. But yeah, so anyways, I've been playing this since the beta. Weather Factory was really cool about the Sunless, I think it's Sunless Sky, but that I actually was, I was in, was it the beta, or did they call it the alpha? I was actually, the funny thing is, I played it in its earliest period, when it was very, very rough. I actually wound up having to give them some feedback in terms of how it played. So in Ontario, there's an election going on. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh man, I love BC. I used to be in Vancouver. So in Ontario, there's an election going on, and just coincidentally, I'm sure, it was called by the government. It wasn't a necessary one. It was one that they sort of took the opportunity to take. And we all got carbon rebate checks in the mail. So that's what I mean by my bribe. So I miss BC terribly, but yeah, so in any case, yeah, so it was actually the first interaction I had with the co-founder of Weather Factory, Lottie, when I was submitting some bug reports for that. But the funny thing is, I never actually played the finished version of Sunless Skies. And that's partly because I really wanted to get through a full playthrough of Sunless Sea, which I never did. And so I've had it sitting in my library forever. But ultimately, I've not played it yet, which feels quite ridiculous. I've also played a little bit of Fallen London, but the armpit, I'm trying to think where that might be. Sorry, I've only been in sort of the I've only been in the very like bottom left of the province for basically all of my life, except for the Ontario part. I guess I was in the Kootenays for a little bit, but we won't talk about the Kootenays. Anyways, wonderful. I'm so happy to learn a little bit more about you, Kibble and Bricks. But yeah, so because I've been playing this for so long, we've got every part of the house unlocked. I've actually written a whole bunch of invitations to potential members of the Lighthouse Institute, and in fact, for my journal, I've made a number of determinations as well But I'm waiting until we're getting ready to found the Lighthouse Institute before I sort of write my final history. So what I've been doing right now, whenever I host a salon, I've been sort of leveling up whatever skills I have. Everything's quite high, right? My lowest level skill, not including the languages, is level 6 at this point. So I've just been sort of raising the floor, and then as the session goes by, we'll get the books from Oriflammes, but I'm going to be trying something new where I try to get through the events faster, because right now I'm really just waiting for people who to get inspired to be able to do the final Lighthouse Institute interactions. Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Yeah, no, they're truly wonderful game developers. I've been very so they actually let me do the stream on their store page. And you insisted on paying me, which I would have done for free. So just really, really nice people who obviously gave me an opportunity to help and share this game that I've been with for quite some time. And in that case, like like the money side is nice, but I do count myself very lucky, because I've had some game developers who definitely sort of take the relationship for granted, and definitely leave me feeling not so very good. But it's truly always a delight to be able to interact with Weather Factory, whether it's on the subreddit, or whether in the case of submitting bug reports or something like that. I consider myself very, very lucky to have been given that opportunity, and just to be part of a community, really, in terms of the game, to just be able to have the kinds of interactions that come out of it, because they it's just one of these things, right, where obviously the individual attention is nice, but the open development that they practice, right? I don't know if you know, but they've announced their third game, and it's going to be years before they do that, before they release it. But because there is that more tight-knit community, and that there's a bit of a different attitude than you'll normally see on places like the Steam forums and such. Oh, you know what? I forgot to get the reading done. Anyways, at least we've got our regret. But yeah, it's one of these things where, as players of the games, we get the advantage of being able to sort of see some of this stuff early. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's neat that they're able to do that. Because obviously you can think of games like No Man's Sky, which also were very enthusiastic about their development, but ultimately that kind of came to hurt them when people reacted negatively to sort of what they felt the game would be. I have no idea. So my feeling is one of the real advantages that so it's basically two very nice people in the UK who are, they're working with sort of contractors, really. So my guess here would be one of the advantages that they have is sort of cost control, that they don't need to spend as much as other game developers would in order to make the game. So my guess here would be, and this is not inside knowledge on my part, but I do understand that voice acting is quite costly. And I imagine that they would probably put the money towards localizing in different languages first, rather than any kinds of voice acting. But you never know, right? I mean, that's going to be something that they probably talk about over the course of development and try and think about. So, well, you see, the funny thing is that it's a truly wonderful game, and it was actually, even while people, sorry, I will get back into Book of Hours, but No Man's Sky actually had a very large number of people playing it. I think Sean Murray in a GDC talk shared some player numbers based on the PlayStation numbers. And like there was never a point where there were not a ton of people playing that game, even when even when like everybody was hating on it. And my own feeling on this, right, as a Twitch broadcaster, I kind of think at the point, like, I don't really feel like disappointment can quite exist in terms of games. Like the Metacritic score was somewhere around like 70 or 8, or maybe 80 seems a bit high, but it was kind of like mid 70s, I think. You had the option of sort of seeing streamers play it. Like, it is really the sort of thing that says, this is not a game that's revolutionizing, gaming as we know it. If you like that sort of thing, you'll probably really like it, is kind of what that score said to me. And of course, now they've done so many updates to it, and they've put a lot of things in that really is the game that people seem to want, right? Like, I really think it's great that Hello Games took that experience, and as unpleasant as it may have been, they were really able to implement. They were able to take the criticism, even though it was very harsh, and they were able to turn that into the game that people had stated that they wanted, at least insofar as they were capable. But I think the one thing that's not appreciated about that game is that if you looked at the revealed preferences of players, like the people who weren't online, weren't talking on Twitter, weren't on Steam forums or whatever, there was always actually this really solid core of people who were having a great time with the game. And I occasionally jump into it. Actually, I've never played the game that much, but it's always very interesting to see the difference between what the numbers are behind the scenes versus what the dialogue is around a game. And I think we're going to be seeing that with Civilization 7 as well. So I don't think they would do it for free. But the thing is that the Weather Factory does have the 6th history license. Now, it's probably not in line with the narration. I mean, a narration mod would kind of depend on what the modding capabilities are. But there is a license that they have in where if you're doing a fan project, you can actually charge a bit for it, provided it follows certain guidelines. So essentially, like, don't take their copyrighted stuff. You can make stuff within the settings. You would put the, you'd put the 6 history branding on it. And the subreddit will have the full text of the license. But it's actually a neat thing that they've done. They've actually enabled small projects to be able to earn a little bit of money to cover their costs, or I think maybe even just a small profit, to be able to create things within the setting, even though they're sort of, or even as long as they're marked as sort of these independent products. And yeah, I'll confess, I actually haven't played Overwatch, so I guess I have it because it's free to play now, I think. Yeah, I know, but there's actually quite a number of fan projects that are out there, which you may want to check out in the subreddit. But yeah, no, they're actually, I think, a very forward-looking and very interesting developer for that stuff. Anyways, I've been filibustering, and I do need to figure out how I'm leveling all this stuff up. So I'm going to erase my entries first. So I was going to take Edict's Martial and use that to level up Pearl and Tide. I was going to take my Sharps and level up Inks of Containment, and then the Auroral Contemplations was going to level up Disciplines of the Hammer. So I suppose Disciplines of the Hammer is the most sensible one for me to shoot for first. So, or is it? Because I guess we have all of these sitting around here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh wait, no. Yeah, here we go. Okay, sorry, my bad. Right, okay, so Inks of Containment is taken care of. Now we'll shoot for Disciplines of the Hammer. So, first thing that I want to do is get a contradiction. So, as the sun his course. You just need a pronunciation guide. Yeah, I have some curious takes on how certain names are pronounced in this game. All right, let's do the Gospel of Zacchaeus for... wait a minute. doing that for Moon. Darn it. Okay, let's try that again. So I've got contradiction for... okay, so that's 4, 5 of the disciplines of the hammer. Regret will be 6. Pattern will be 7. Wait, if it's 7, then I'm good. So let me just double check this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Good. Okay. So finally, there's the question of Pearl and Tide. Now that's going to be a little bit of a complicated one, but I say hammer time too whenever I level that up. Okay, so let's focus on the rose stuff first. I've got 1 through the wistful air. So that's 2 through... Oh, God. Yeah, so this one's actually a waste. Okay, so 2 with the secret threshold. Good Lord. 3 with the gossip. Four with the intuition. Yikes. I'm running out of desks. I think I've already used up my vac. Okay. So it'll be 5 with a confounding parable, but I'm actually still short a... No, actually, we'll be good. Okay, I got it. Right, that was a really, really narrow path, but we should be able to get through it. Just organize your memories and the first tower. Got about 1/4 of the library locked. Can you keep playing through the same save if you add the DLC partway through? Absolutely, you can. So, in fact, so the DLC was designed to be able to preserve the old saves. In fact, I believe you will retain the decisions that you made. So one of the features of the DLC is that there's further stories. So each of the events that you do, so I'm currently on the affair of the particular Mystique. So there are certain choices that you'll make, and those will have sort of consequences, and then you sort of make a final decision in terms of how you want that to finish off. So I believe if you support, if you help out certain visitors when they come in, those should be recorded in the save file, even if you don't have the DLC. So if you do add the DLC when the when you're mid playthrough, those should be preserved, and you can do the further stories if you're so inclined. The other thing that's kind of neat about it is hosting salons are not an early game thing, so you actually do need to make meals. So you need to at least unlock a kitchen, and then you need to host the salon in a room that has one of these little bells in it. So I don't want to show you too much of the library because I imagine there'll be some surprises, or at least it'd be nice to preserve some surprises. So I'm not going to like draw your attention to any of the really wild stuff. Although I will note that this the full library is available online. It was part of the marketing materials. So I'm not showing a big secret if you see some of the rooms anyway. But yeah, so basically what you do is you'll make things in a kitchen. This is usually the first kitchen that you unlock. You'll host the salon in one of the rooms. And the how do I put it? The salon itself actually requires use of elements of the soul. So generally you'll want to do a salon where you at least have some basics. And then when you say, so none of the events you went through felt like choices. So this was a comment people would give about the game. I'm not entirely sure I agreed with it. So they sort of said that the events didn't really do anything because you didn't get to sort of see the end of them or anything like that. So the only real choice that you make in the base level for it will be whether or not you supply the visitor with a book. But if you don't supply them a book, that does mean that they're not able to pursue their interest in later on. So for instance here, I've helped everyone with the affair of the particular mystique. But in this case, I did choose to give the people the book. And then what happens later on, I won't focus too much on it. I'll just say so the Labyrinth of Lions, this is the story complete here. I had a choice of helping someone like Arthur Moore, or there's an entity known as Echidna, which you probably haven't run into yet. There are a number of different things, and those are explicit choices that you make, and those do actually have consequences in terms of what happens when you want to found the Lighthouse Institute over here. So it's a very big, very deep game, and there's lots of different things. I wouldn't worry too much in terms of when you say you need to pay more attention. Most things you can sort of read and reread, and part of this is sort of figuring it out as you go along. Although obviously if you have questions, and clearly answered that one already, but if you do have any other questions, please don't hesitate to ask them during the stream, because I do like being able to talk about this game with people. All right, the skill is now level 8. Its power aspects have also increased. Okay, so I said I was going to be leveling up Inks of Containment. Let's do that right now. So we'll use the Bittersweet Certainty, Hindsight, Contradiction, Salt, Regret, and the Stolen Secret. I'm really starting to run out of elements of the soul, but we should be able to use the Whist in this case. And I believe I was using the Sharps, but let me just double check that. Yes. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. Connie, you mean? I had something special happen to my Connie. With Keeper level Edge, a winning move is the precursor to Invincible Audacity. Now I'm glad, so the Edge is still fine, but I actually mistakenly thought that this had Forge, so. Winning move. Those who've studied the hours of the Edge often say the world is a war, the chorality. Every event that might happen differently is a battle in that war, a contention between alternative outcomes. The wisdoms can sometimes show the wisdoms can sometimes show those battles might be won. Oh, Echidna, sorry. So yes, no, if you did see Echidna, so she's back. Oh, sorry. So the painter you're talking about from the Medium Legacy? That's a neat take on it, actually. I actually really do want to do the medium again because I know quite a bit more about the setting now that I didn't know when I first did that. When I first did that DLC, so I think I'd have a very different perspective on it now. The skill is now level 7. Its power aspects have also increased. So I don't think I have a lot of opportunities left if I... yeah. I really don't think I have a lot of opportunities left to get certain tech. Well, no, I think we might be able to sneak one more in if I messed up on my memories, but again, it's going to be a pretty narrow path. Ah, yes. No, it's like, it's one of those ones where I'm always kind of careful in terms of how I say it because it can annoy people, but like technically, technically the game does tell you what you need, but I found with a few people, I think most games actually let you get away without reading the details. You can just sort of wing it. And so very often what can happen is a lot of people will get stuck when they think, like, when they think they know a rule because that's how it's worked before, but at no point is anything ever written down. So for me, I have a mild preference for matching lessons to skills just because it kind of feels right. But you're absolutely right. Like, you know, you just need to, the specific requirement that it gives is, we'll take preliminal meter as an example. So the specific requirement here is that it's essential that it be a lesson, and required to go in this slot, an object must match at least one of these. But again, most games don't require that level of attention to detail, right? If you don't mouse over that, or I suppose it'll give you some hints if you don't go through. So I have a lot of sympathy for players who get tripped up on that. But of course, the real drawback in some cases is that when people do run into those... or one way that people do run into those challenges is that at some point the game is going to expect you to look at a detail, right? So a number of the books have sort of some indicators in terms of how to unlock certain things inside of the house. And so if the game maybe put in an arrow to sort of point you to this thing here, how do I put it? Like, it's just kicking the can down the road where you need to confront a challenge with maybe not an intuition, but just sort of rely on the fact that it hasn't specifically excluded a possibility. I'm trying not to think of like specific examples because, you know, obviously some of the fun is figuring this stuff out, but... Okay, as the sun his course, Joel of the Bridge, retired soldier and sometimes tollkeeper, wrote this epic poem about Alexander's famously inexplicable decision at Issus to withdraw from the war with the Achaemenids and his subsequent return to Macedonia. Alexander meets at Issus with Darius, king of kings, for 3 days and 3 nights. On the first day, the two men trade threats. On the second, promises. On the third, secrets. Darius tells Alexander something so shattering he returns to his tent to consider matters of strength and matters of mastery. At dawn on the 4th day, Alexander announces, the sun has his course upon which he returns, and so do I. He returns to Macedonia, executing 2 of his captains when they dispute his decision. He brings with him the names of a blind god and a rite of sacred betrayal. For Joel opines, without betrayal there would be an end to war. Oh yeah, no, I definitely recommend taking some notes. I mean, again, the important thing about this game is that you can read and reread everything. So the real key to this for me is that, like when I first played this was the base game. I had a tablet with notes, I had 2 pads of paper on which I kept notes, and I had a spreadsheet, so I definitely went overboard on it. But there are lots of little hints and implications. So a good example I can give you, because I know you've played Cultist Simulator. you'll notice that your mentors, people like Poppy Lascelles or, sorry, I'm trying to think of Count Jannings, Gottlob Jannings. So you'll notice that those characters have the mortal aspect. But then you have a mentor, Ibn al-Adim. Now, Ibn al-Adim does not have the mortal aspect. And in fact, there is a Wikipedia entry for Ibn al-Adim, and he definitely was not alive, or at least is not recorded as being alive, at the time that Cultist Simulator takes place. And so there isn't really a point where the game just sort of comes out and says, hey, this guy's immortal. But the aspect system and sort of paying attention to detail gives that revelation of saying, is like, oh, hang on. So, Olympie Bichet, Count Jannings, the Weary Detective, all of these people are mortal. And there's this absence from this one figure here. And then again, if you go and you look up the article, you're like, oh yeah, no, this guy was around such and such a time, and this is potentially real. So sometimes that can be helpful. Okay, the Gospel of Zacchaeus, an extremely heterodox account of the Nazarene Messiah and his works, describing his ascension to the mansus through the opening of his body. 7 were the wounds of his body, 7 the doors of the house, 7 the lesser aspects of the hours, and Knock the aspect above all, for the mother of ants is the mother of salvation. The book includes a description of a rite which can be used to raise a corpse to half-life in memory of he who bled for the wood, but the marginalia claim that the mother of ants no longer permits use of this rite. Sorry, just give me a second here. I saw a news article that interests me. Okay. The Republic of Teeth, an eccentric political tract by Valentine de Wolf. Valentine suggests that rulers should be elected to govern by serpents, not their subjects, for the serpent, being cold-blooded in its nature, is incorruptible. The Valentine's initial proposal is that a college of electors should subject themselves to the bites of venomous serpents, which he grades and details, preferring the least dangerous, and should allow the resulting deliria to guide them in their choice of people's representatives. He becomes concerned, however, by the practicalities of ensuring equal quantities of venom in each case, and gets halfway into a proposal for using birds instead of the selection process before giving up mid-sentence. Yeah, no problem. Have a good night, Kibble and Bits, and good luck with your run. I hope you have a good time in Hush House. And again, don't hesitate. Even if I'm playing a game that isn't Book of Hours, which is unlikely, don't hesitate to stop by and ask any questions if you have anything. But I'm sure I'll see you around. The Serenity of the Black Wood, an allegorical history of the House of Leith, which it is here implied was inspired by the centipede. Serrano Blackwood is an occult alias to this day. The proverbial footloose gathers travelers in a wood and leads them through, but abandons them part way. They find themselves beset by glorious monsters. The travelers discover that they can survive if they close their eyes. They adopt a closed eye as their sign, and that they can go unnoticed if they drink from the clear, cold streams. They never forget that proverbial footloose the centipede, but they never forgive her either. Codex Acephali, sometimes called the Book of the Clean Skull, the book contains accounts of enlightenments available through the gradual surgical removal of the lobes of the brain. It becomes clear that the processes detailed are mostly allegorical or metaphorical descriptions of winter techniques for less revolting occult work. Even the metaphors are pretty horrible, though. And the author explains adaptations of these techniques with sufficient winter aspect to harvest a mysterious substance described as the rags of the final bone from the remains of almost any animal. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I need one more here. A manual for departure. The author, who identifies itself as the Jekadu, claims to be one of the great hooded princes of the land of the river. The style is informal, even chatty. No, these doors shouldn't be recorded, but if we had only recorded things before we'd had to leave the fifth history, we would be in a much better state. So here I am writing it down, and if you don't like it, you can sanction me. The manual for departure lists a number of strategies, occult, martial, and political, for quick escapes. Many are irrelevant, obsolete, or enigmatic, but the manual does include a number of powerful techniques for opening portals. The Humours of a Gentleman, Samuel Savage's satirical comedy on the intrigues of the ailing but cunning John Sun, his mistress Mavelyn, her lover Leo, and the upstart Corvino. By the end of the first act, Mavelyn has revealed a secret door in the walls of the house to Leo, and Corvino has taken to consuming worms. The play is scabrous and occasionally hilarious. The characters are contrary and capricious. Many of the more resonant lines might well be formula of power disguised in plain sight. And Traveling at Night, Volume 3, the annotated dream journals of Christopher Olopoli, sometimes called the only readable occultist. Literate, entertaining, bewildering. Oh, if it wasn't clear, the gossip that should have come out of Humours of a Gentleman was something that Mrs. Kill gave me earlier. Olopoli's disquisitions on fire and the unburnt god are interrupted by passages of distractingly erotic poetry addressed to Baldemera. To reach the stag door, I believe that all you really need is to want something enough. But I've never wanted anything that much, except of course Baldemera, and I'm very much afraid that the knot in the story is this. What Baldemera wants is the stag door. But here's something I learned in Persia. Perhaps it'll teach you what you want. And oh no, that's it. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for Pearl and Tide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for Disciplines of the Hammer. I'm going to do Disciplines of the Hammer first just because this is the harder one for me to get. So it'd be a shame if either of them didn't turn out, but this is definitely one of the higher risk ones. So Auroral Contemplations. At last I approach mastery. Improve this skill to level 8. So sorry it's taken me so long to get through all of the lessons here, but we'll get through the rest of summer without too much trouble. And then we can... I'm pretty sure we'll be finishing off the affair of the particular mystique. Okay, and finally these Pearl and Tide. Nope. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. So I was sort of tiptoeing around some of the skills that I was working on just because I wanted to make sure that I had elements of the soul left to do the upgrades. That was not really that necessary because we had the Tristan reserve anyway, but I have found in a couple of cases that I do lose track, and the worst thing in the world, right, is to get to this point and know that you have to go and restore something at the Sweet Bones in hopes that you don't lose all of those memories you put all that effort into. I will try and keep a memory over, or, well, you know what, let's not even worry about it because I'm not going to keep it. Okay, other regrets. And the skill is now level 7. Its power aspects have also increased. So I'm going to shuffle that all there. Now, I do have a bit of reordering to do. So Disciplines of the Hammer is now 8. And Lockworks and Clockworks likewise. And the floor is now 7. Actually, I can move Inks of Revelation over. So the idea here is that it's not that I dislike the inks skills, but they're the ones that sort of have the least versatility among all of my skills here. It is going to get a little ridiculous for some of the salons, I think. Like, obviously, any level up that I need to do is now going to require quite a bit of effort. But we'll see. I mean, I may revise my approach to salons if we get to a point where we're approaching sort of 9 for everything. But we do want to do something over the course of the stream, right? So, all right, Deoris Book 3. That is going to have a tally price of 3 as well. So just enough for my tin spintria. And at some point, I want to try and reorder the... I want to try and reorder the invitations and all of that, but I won't worry about that right now. Okay, so I may lose the memory, but at this point we don't have a whole lot to lose. So in this case, we will just read Deoris Volume 3, and I'll use Edicts Martial because nothing succeeds like excess. I can master this mystery. And then we can just get whatever leveling done and sail on to the end of summer. Actually, I should have seen it's Disciplines of the Scar, so I already knew what the result would be. Okay, in Latin, a 19th century reprint by the indefatigable Nathaniel Darcy Evers of a 14th century Latin translation of a 4th century work. This is usually described as the third volume of Deoris, but Darcy Evers' foreword argues persuasively that it's a substantial reworking by the original author. The linesmith makes monsters, the colonel has his scars, but the Deoris now insists that neither can truly defeat the other, that they must at some level understand these limits in their strategies, and that their enmity is an internal engine of the world. So Disciplines of the Scar and a contradiction. So that's a little unfortunate just because we're running out of space for contradictions. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... 8 contradiction texts. I'll put it up here. So I'm wondering if there's a shelf. Yeah, 6. Although, if this is gossip... Right, okay, this is quite simple to fix, actually. So I'm going to put Honey, a Comprehensive Guide down here, along with Deoris. Okay, that's what I got now. I'm going to try and... I don't know about keeping gossip in the, that particular room, but... for heaven's sake. Okay, so just gonna tidy this up a little bit. And then if I have another spot for 6, I don't really think so. I could maybe switch around the salt, which I guess does have at least a winter aspect. You know what? The gossip's fine. All right. So it does invite the question, though. What do I want? I can't keep this overnight. What do I want to use Disciplines of the Scar with? So we've got Edge and we've got Lantern. So I don't think there's any Lantern stuff that I can level up except for Inks of Revelation. So if we go for Edge, the first one on the list is Menascate Reflections. We had so much fun doing Edge and Forge last time. Then there's Ragged Crossroads. But let's stick to the plan. I did say that I would level the first one up. So we can get an early start with this. Actually, come to think of it, this is an opportunity. So if I do... Yeah, so we'll do Disciplines of the Hammer. I can use the Contradiction for the winning move. I can even go so far as to do Torg's Cleansing. So that's 2 of the 7 that we need. Three. Four. I don't even remember. That's 5. Six. Seven. Okay. Should probably slow it down when we get to the end of the... Okay. No need, it turns out. That 6 worries me a little. No, we're fine, because it's going to be building overnight, right. The Carmine Petal revised, an apparently theoretical project proposed by Lionel of the Society of the Noble Endeavor, which might permit the imprisonment of a renegade forge name, a very heavily revised edition of an earlier and even more controversial work. The book was evidently revised sometime after the Wars of the Roads had ended, but even then this kind of discussion would have been politically difficult. Lionel suggests that the disciplines of Scar and Hammer together would be necessary to create such a prison, but that either on its own would serve to release its occupant. On the Winding Stair, Gregory Wheellock, the master mason and architect employed by Walter de Wolfe to construct the Winding Stair and the guest chambers in Hush House, describes a more ambitious and dangerous project. Gregory marks the bricks of his roost-touched family home, Treowind, with Ramsund, hoping to open forbidden doors. Gregory evidently succeeds in opening a way to something he calls the Moon Hall, but here his account becomes erratic. He insists that in the Moon Hall the horned axe is still an edge power. He hopes for an eternal rival, but cannot find the one he needs. The narrative is increasingly interspersed with chess notations and ends abruptly. The cleansing has left my skin burning, my teeth throbbing. The chorovality rumbles beneath the membranous surfaces of the waking world. Stolen Histories. The agitator and pamphleteer Alexander Sparrow inveighs against the monstrous serpents, thieves of history. Sparrow acknowledges 5 histories, insists the third may be overrun by coils, and warns the 5th history is already lost. Sparrow, with his usual paranoia, appears to be conflating the horror of the Worm Wars and the Great Writhing with the activities of the Great Hooded Princes. Still, he draws thought-provoking comparisons between the princes, normally conceived as exotic long, and the widely feared worms. An Exorcist's Field Manual, a practical guide to troublesome dead, grounded in theory, but with a clear focus on their disposal by the redoubtable Detective Austeri Wheellock of the Suppression Bureau. The dead usually avoid light, as the most immediate manifestation of eternity, which has no place for death. However, those dead uplifted by gold, that is to say touched by an actinic theoplasma, happily bought about in daylight, and are perhaps strongest at noon. If you are dead but uplifted by green, that's the Ring-Use blessing. The crown growth offers a similar but nastier benefit. This is how burgeoning risen come about, but there are different degrees of sentience and freedom depending on which growths are involved. The consciousness of one uplifted by green is always greatly altered, though. They never really seem like the same person. They may have dregs of their original souls, but these are often replaced by something else. The upshot, invariably, is that they need to be set firmly on fire. And the Ivory Book, a manual of the Ordo Limea, an order of quasi-immortals who maintained a secret enclave at the source of the river Limia in the Roman province of Hispania Gallicaea. This manual was compiled by one Curanai, who claims to have fled the tyranny of the Chrysanthemum throne to cross the world and join the Ordo. Members of the Ordo took an oath, the Ivory Chain, not to have commerce with the Hours. Followed literally, this would be almost impossible for an adept, so the manual contains numerous clarifications, exceptions, and processes of indulgence. Curanai describes the Order's burial rites, which include spells to ensure, in theory, that the souls of dead long are not given to the Hours. The hour called the Ivory Dove, who memorializes and commemorates, is to be invoked in secret in these rites, for with that hour we have made an understanding. Okay, so we should, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're short 1, which we should get in 20 seconds or so. Or I guess 15 seconds because of the... And the winning move. Okay. And again, I could go and, make food for the salon or anything, but in this case here, we're just going to let summer go by. We've got the house unlocked, and what we're really waiting for is to do this experiment where I try and sort of spam an event with as many guests as I possibly can. Night has fallen. Dawn will come soon. So this is kind of one of the things I was a little self-conscious about here. I guess one thing I could do would be to store all of these, or like to generate some memories or something. But what I've normally run into is just Numa comes, I've got a whole bunch of memories which I haven't used. Really all that I use the memories for at this point is to upgrade the things that I get from the salon. So I can go through the books again, but ultimately going through those books causes me to sort of spend longer on a season. And I'm at the point here where I really do want to test this approach with a new test this approach with the invitations. So it's not super exciting. And again, it sometimes I feel a little bad that I'm sitting in silence waiting for the days to end. But once I have a clearer idea in terms of what the of the effectiveness of my next strategy, I'll have a little more freedom. I guess one of the things I could have done was I could have used the elements of the soul to examine some more objects through the house. It might be kind of nice to go room by room looking at the various things. I'd still do that at a fast speed just so I don't spend too much time on something that may be of tangential interest. But let's see how this approach works first, and then that'll give us something to do for the seasons. Okay, so we should be crossing over into autumn now. I'm not going to speed things up at this point. There it is. All right, what's happening in the world beyond Brandkrug? What visitors will the season bring? That's it. All right, that was the affair of the particular mystique. The Suppression Bureau has a growing interest in the recent fad for unconventional, often prophetic, religious movements. No laws have been broken, nothing sinister has come to light. All these movements are comfortingly solar in nature, but there does seem to be something going on. We had Yvette Southey. Dr. Southey refused the blandishments. Or sorry, I guess it's Douglas was first. So D.I. Moore was mostly concerned, or no, it was the other way around. So Yvette, Dr. Southey refused the blandishments of the cult called the Ivory Dawn, but suspected that they honored her by reason of a pre-immortal in her ancestry. It wasn't clear what Zachary Wakefield intended with the new crop of cults, but it was clear that it was nothing especially constructive. Lieutenant Moore dared to hope that he might begin to understand the Sun's plan. Fraser Strathcoyne believed that something had drawn the Obliviots, the Long who'd secluded themselves in Port Noon, back to the world. Corso suggested that the new doctrines had suggested a connection to him between the enigmatic hour called the Chandler and a name of the watchman, Sunset Celia, and Dr. Blackwood dismissed the whole business of cults as a popular delusion in a time of change. D.I. Moore was mostly concerned that the cults might be a breeding ground for Long, and so increase the incidence of the crime of the sky. So I'm actually going to take a flyer on here. I think this is not going to be a good idea, but let's see. Let's try this with my Nillikant. So great ink of power, handy soul element, in caution, readiness, blank writing, medium, inquiry via this avenue. Wise, absence is true skill. Hang on. It's got to be edge. Or Ava's desk will do. I can get one of these extra parchments out of the way. It is not the librarian's business to meddle in the world beyond Hush House, but sometimes the librarian gets curious. Sometimes the librarian misuses their prerogatives because they grow restless. This will precipitate an incident, if any yet remain undrawn. If there's already an incident, visitors might not initially interact with the one you intend. Investigate informedly, he's incipient. 10 seconds, darn it. A story has no beginning or end. Arbitrarily, one chooses that moment of experience from which to look back or from which to look ahead. The real shame is I think if I hadn't unpaused that time before, I might have been able to... All right, so we have the affair of the other horizon. Sailors have a term for the compass whirl phenomenon which occurs before sightings of the city Yis. They say a compass has caught the giddy horizons. There is something of a giddy epidemic in the North Sea this year. Visitors with an interest in rose mysteries will want to talk about this. Okay, so that was a bit of an education in terms of how that works. We'll see who's visiting. Mr. Eason Fekri. Nothing particular is afoot. Any visitors this season will likely just want a general consultation. Okay, so first thing I want to do here is make sure that I have Eason on my list. If I haven't already. I do not. So he was originally going to be part of the group that I invited, but it looks like he's already... Whoa. Okay, so he is interested in Heart and Sky. I'm trying to think if there's a way... Well, there's a few ways that I can mess around with this, but... let's now take a look. So we should see the next event. So we should be able to resolve that now, or at least pretty soon. All right, the particular mystique. There's been a curious fad for new religious organizations recently, including an odd outfit that calls itself the Ivory Dawn. So my options here would be Douglas, Fraser, Serena, and Yvette. And I just want to take a look here. Oh, this will be an interesting one, actually. Very interesting. Okay, so it seems to me like I want to invite Douglas, Fraser, Serena, and Yvette just to talk about the particular mystique. So what I'll do here is I'll invite Eason for a conversation. Now we're ignoring... Hey, Tiberiosity, good to see you. Enjoy your lurk. So this is purely about... this part is purely about seeing the event to its conclusion. We'll host the salon tomorrow. But what's neat about this is that I'm actually going to be able to knock a few people off the list. So I'll be changing who I invite to the salon. And I'm actually going to get my list of people faster. Now, I don't think, like, we can't rely on the avenue of inquiry each time. So I think we should expect that there's going to be sort of if this works, there's going to be one season where we have, you know, where we do stuff. And then there's going to be one season where we recharge. Which we should still be able to get through the details pretty quickly. Okay, it's good to be back. Thank you for seeing me. If there's an incident card active, you can discuss it or just leave the slot empty and offer a consultation. Yeah, we'll leave the slot empty and offer the consultation. If I can I can identify my visitor's interests and satisfy them with an appropriate book. Alternatively, if they know a language I'd like to learn, I can offer payment. So it doesn't really matter if it's heart or sky. Let's find a nice, simple heart book. Another line. There we go. My visitor has questions about blessings or wardings or life. My collection has answers. Okay. So Douglas, Fraser, Serena, Yvette. Stamp, envelope, send. Just double checking. Okay, I'm also going to see if I can tidy up this collection of invitations. There's no real good way to do this. It's an odd lot, but let's okay. So we'll put Corso down here. I think I might be able to just do this one at a time. So this is going to get drawn down over time. Let's go. Okay, so that should give me a little more breathing room as far as making money and such. The postmistress examines the letter and deems it sufficient. It'll go with the next post, she assures me. So the there's going to be two things that I do with this collection of people who arrive. One of them is going to be I'm going to write down all of their interests. So that's going to mean that the salon this period is actually going to be more focused on... there'll be a couple of people that I get some intel on, but the salon's really going to be focused on... just the combinations I've already found. How encouraging. You've satisfied your visitor and earned a reward, but the more they learn, the harder they'll be to satisfy in the future. An afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So the first thing that I want to do here is I want to see what the options are. So I have some ideas, like I have some weak preferences in terms of characters I'd like to move forward with, but that's not quite good enough. I do want satisfying endings to these stories. So did Douglas Moore receive my invitation? Detective Illuminated of the Suppression Bureau, a stoic but weary fellow. His dearest wish is to move to Chingford and grow roses, but the buggers won't let him retire. Did Strathcoyne receive my invitation? Philanthropist, collector, former librarian, a complicated man, but not a cruel one. Dr. Serena Blackwood, one-time librarian of Hush House, one-time librarian of the Invisible Serapeum in Alexandria, and currently what exactly? Serena is closed-mouthed, but I know that she worked with the St. Ronwin Trust. And Dr. Yvette Southey, playwright, philologist, psychoanalyst, as happy with questions as with answers. Okay, so our options here. There's been a curious fad for new religious organizations recently, including an outfit that calls itself the Ivory Dawn. What happened with the fad for religions? Follow up with Douglas. Oh, hang on. I can never remember if I hit continue, if there's going to be... Yeah. Because usually there's more information, so if I say continue... Interesting. Okay. So I was pretty sure that the continue would lock it in, but I wanted to test. So, there's been a curious fad for new religious organizations recently, including an outfit that calls itself the Ivory Dawn. Zachary isn't part of the the group, so I think actually in this case, let's try Yvette. Oh, actually, let me just see. So, what happened with the fad for religions? Follow up with Douglas. Fraser suspected that one of the new religions was influenced by the Obliviots. Has he learned anything more? What's happening with the fad for solar cults? Does she still think it was nothing unusual? And then, so the reason why I wanted Dr. Southey is they seemed to want something from her. So what happened with the Ivory Dawn? Follow up with Yvette. Black Ellie, former Obliviate, former Sisterhood matriarch, and a nectar long throughout, is behind the cult called the Ivory Dawn. She intends to render Yvette Southey to Yeez. She insists this will serve the so-called bird cause, the cause of stability. I met with the Ivory Dawn and with their patron. Her name's Ellie. She's very old. She told me a little about my ancestry, the pale line, the connection to Yeez behind the wave. She wants me to go there. It'll win protection for the world, she tells me. I believe her, actually. She strikes me as a woman of integrity. She let me live freely, and I won't deny I'm curious and tempted, but I'm not nearly ready to take a leap like that. Oh, man. All right. So it's like, I kind of like the fact that she was eager to go, and then it sounds like she's not ready to go. Also, I want to make some notes here, so... So I'm trying to figure out what the relationship with Yvette and the Southie that there's an illustration for, because I imagine that this is I imagine this is a connection to Ava and the DeWolfs. And I also think there's kind of something interesting about the idea that you have Robert Southey, the poet, and the line about the, you know, tremendous time with poets. Okay. Okay. Black Ellie, former Obliviate, former Sisterhood matriarch, and a Nectarlong throughout, is behind the cult called the Ivory Dawn. She intends to render Yvette Southey to Ys. She insists this will serve the so-called bird cause, the cause of stability. So we still have the various characters. So Douglas, thwart Ellie. The Bureau will see off Ellie, keep her hands off Yvette, but it won't be easy. Ellie's been around a long time, and she's a toughin'. But because she's been around a long time, I'm hoping you might have a book with information on her I can use. Deceive Yvette. Fraser supports Ellie's plan to protect the bounds. He insists that Yvette's heritage will draw her to Ys sooner or later, and without Ellie's bargain, Yvette might become a danger. All we need to do is arrange a meeting between her and Fraser, and he'll take care of the rest. Ellie means well, I'm sure of it, and I'm sure she knows Ys will betray her. She'll have planned for it, but I fear Ys is more cunning than any Long, even Ellie. Still, she is very cunning. It'll be difficult to drive her off. Do you have anything on the Iron Chain, or Applebright Euphonies 12? And 2 with Yvette. So 1 says, convince Yvette. Yvette is intrigued by Ellie's offer. She might yet be tempted into going to Ys of her own free will. Add a horizon sight to convince Yvette. Interesting. Or inform Yvette. Yvette is intrigued by Ellie's offer, but understandably concerned. More information on Ellie might make up her mind. Interesting. So this actually also explains, I didn't want to draw too much attention to this, but where was it? So for Secretary Salvant, Ellie's promise, once Black Ellie was matriarch of the Sisterhoods of the Triple Knot of Damascus, now she's an ally of Ys and a candidate for the Lighthouse Institute. So I didn't want to actually, I mean, this I guess technically gives us a bit of an indication in terms of where this can go. But yeah, man, it's an interesting and tricky one. So I'm trying to remember, I believe it was A Journey to the Grove. Yes. So my feeling on this one is that probably the person who should be making the choice here is Ellie, or is Yvette, not Ellie. Now it seems to me like we convince Dr. Yvette Southey, or we give her information about Black Ellie, and it's hard to see Yvette stay. Like, it's just one of these things, right? You have two options. I don't imagine that they lead to the same place. But with that in mind, just in general, I sort of feel like this should be Yvette's choice. I'm not really inclined with Fraser's line of thinking on this. So, I'm gonna have to deposit my sack of vegetables for a minute. Inform Yvette. Yvette is intrigued by Ellie's offer, but understandably concerned. More information on Ellie might help her make up her mind. Return the next day. Oh, heaven's sake. Alright, so I forgot to write... Oh no, we already had Yvette's stats. DI Moore we should already have. Yep. Fraser Strathcoyne. So he's interested in Lantern and Scale. Serena Blackwood is interested in Lantern and Forge. So the people I don't know about yet are Coquille, Dagmar, Hokabald, and Olympi. Those will be the people I invite to the salon. Which actually I can prepare for now. Sorry, just 1 second. So this is Coquille, Dagmar, Hokabald, Olympi. So there's a Daymare Coquille interaction. No other one, so I think we bring Reverend Timothy again. Okay. So with that in mind, I should probably work out the food now. So Coquille Grail, Dagmar is Knock. I'm pretty sure Hokabald is Forge, but yeah. I always forget Olympi. I don't think it's Moth, but yeah, it's Forge. Okay, so as is kind of my practice for the last little while, I'm trying to free up all of the different rooms. So we do have Fudge, which is good for Grail. So we'll put that here. Knock. I actually have very few knock options. I'm trying to remember. I know there's the game chips, but then King's Luck Pie is a little much. Oh, Game Pie. Okay. Also gives me a Forge. All right, this one's a pain in the neck. Okay, so I need 2 Forge, and those need to be a first course and a side dish. Well, that's going to be fun. Or let me just double check that. Yes, so this is a main course. This is a pudding. So the magnificent roast potatoes will do the trick. That's the side, so I now need a forge first course. Ham and cheese toasty it is. Okay, and then we need something for Reverend Timothy. That can be pretty straightforward. Anything, I think anything simple or anything I have a duplicate of would not be a bad idea here. Oh, ham and potato bake will work. Okay, so now I need to think about Grail, Knock, and Forge drinks. So I kind of have one option as far as the Knock drinks go. I'm just trying to remember if I have the tea. I can brew it if I need, but I think we put some down here. No, that's the Lapsang. Interesting. I do believe I may have run out of Cater and Hero Second Flush Assam. I'll just take a quick look room by room. Definitely give up one of these, so that'll be for Coquille. So that's not a hardship, like we can order that in. It's just that does delay the salon until I can, well, that or I use the sacrament acite, which again is a weird that is a weird use for it, but it's not like I have other applications. I don't think this counts as a drink. Yeah, so I mean, I have tea packets, but it's not the tea that I need. I really thought I had more. Well, the miskissed water will save me. Okay. So we can serve that. Two forged drinks. So we have the whiskey, but Don Lion coffee also works. Or actually, you know what? We have a lot of Roskragen, so... But clearly this should be a signal that I order in some tea packets, so... Really no room in on the table. No problem. Thank you for stopping by, Jamie. I will. I'm looking forward to seeing what the end result of the event is. So we'll let you know when you're in next. Have a wonderful evening. It actually looks kind of pretty. Oh, I should probably sort out what I'm doing with the other visitors. So Douglas, will talk to him about either a lantern or a heart book. I guess it wouldn't hurt. Sorry, I'm trying to remember what we gave. Was it? Yeah, here we go. Okay. I also need to remember that it's a satisfaction book. Oh yes, sorry. And then the order. Maybe I'll do 4 and just boil one of them right off the top. Okay. So obviously we'll get that at the end of the day, but no point in making it any later. Oh, I don't want to break the 7-pound note. Complete the order. All right, let's watch the magic happen here. Okay. Of course, this is where I should be able to combine them, but I think this is going to cause... Like, if I do it here... Oh, huh. That worked. All right. So I may be running out of time for... Oh, no. I can just keep talking with Mr. Strathcoyne and Serena. So Strathcoyne, I want to give him a lantern book if I can. I'm thinking the Known Unknown Tantra is a good choice. Oh, was it? I think there's a 4. Probably Locksmith Dream? Yeah. And we're ready to go with the salon. It's really just a question of inviting people, but we're going to do that tomorrow. We'll invite them first thing, and then we'll wait till the afternoon. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. I'm going to change out one other thing. I'm going to... So I've got a few pickled mushrooms. So I'm going to replace the ham and potato bake with the pickled mushrooms. enlightening. You've satisfied your visitor and earned a reward, but the more they learn, the harder they'll be to satisfy in the future. And finally, Dr. Blackwood. So that's 4 and 4. We might as well do the locksmith dream as well. So my visitor is in search of revelations. The answers can be found in my collection. All right. I'm feeling pretty good about that. Hey! I like that. So yeah, like I said, first thing, we'll send out the invitations. I can actually move those up. So we will have Coquille, Dagmar, sorry, I want to focus on this for a second. So, Coquille, Dagmar, Hokabald, you should be here somewhere. Olympi with Forge. And then Reverend Timothy will be invited later. Actually, right now. So, speak with Reverend Timothy. Reverend Timothy enjoys thoughtful conversation, prayer, and tea. He'll offer his assistance in return for a 1 shilling donation to church funds. Oop, wrong book. Invite Reverend Timothy up to Hush House. Okay, so... And then let's see what happened with the... Alright. She's had dealing with a nowhere name. Close dealings. And she may still... sorry, just 1 second here. And she may still. She had never mentioned it to me. I only partly understand what a nowhere name is, but I know enough not to get involved. Every day I seem to find something else to mistrust. Thank you. Fear of Yeez. All right, a visitor has been affected by recent events and may now be more inclined to join the Lighthouse Institute. Dr. Yvette Southey, so now inspired. Fear of Yeez. This one knows of the peril of Yeez seductions. And we did get an inkling, so I am actually going to join that. I suppose we can talk with her about a book, too. Okay. So just making a note here. It's kind of interesting. Some cases I know, some cases there's like more than one item that comes up, so it always feels a little funny when it's just one that goes in. No! You were behaving so well. We don't need to combine these right away, I don't think. Ah, crap. All right. So we got Coquille. We'll bring in Dagmar now. Reverend Timothy is almost speechless with excitement. Almost. We'll put you down here, I think. Reverend Timothy will attend the next salon with a freshly starched clerical collar. Hulkbald. I should also be restoring the shaft. I don't think I'll need to, but never hurts to put that aside. Postmistress examines the letter and deems it sufficient. It'll go with the next post, she assures me. And then finally, Olympi. Yeah, there's really no good way around this, so I'll do my best as the time goes by. Ugh. So for her, it's moon or winter. Doesn't seem right. Yeah, so we got a lot of 6 moon texts. I don't know if there are any 4 moon texts. Oh, there should be, actually. Oh no, that's a 6 too. But the Viennese conundrum comes in. Okay. Hello there, got a moment? My visitor has questions about hidden things. The answers can be found in my collection. Okay. Reverend Timothy goes up here. This might be easier if I don't have the people on their way. Obviously, this is all temporary. Okay, so thesis, and we're gonna try and work these. I'm gonna try and use these up reasonably soon. Okay, there we go. So we'll get an order form before too long. And then we're good. Now at some point, I'll want to work out. So if the affair of the other horizon is a matter of Rose, the people we would invite would be Ibn al-Adim, Lala Khaima, alright, so I've only got 2 Rose people right now. I suspect that will change. Okay, so the first... Oh, how unexpected. Okay, so I'm going to write these down as I get them, otherwise I'm going to forget. So, Kokil Amirajibi, artist, socialite, burglar, and or I'll get this written down when... or not written down, but I'll say this when we get ready for the salon. So she's interested in Grail and Knock. Daymare is interested in Knock and Rose, so she'll be one we talk about the... she'll be the one that we talk to as part of the affair of the other horizon. Magister Hokabald is interested in Forge and Grail. And I have to imagine that Olympi is interested in Rose, but I don't know for sure. Turns out she's also inspired. I wonder what role she takes. I guess Secretary Nunciant. Okay, and she's interested in Moth and Forge. Interesting. So, if I'm reading this correctly, the visitors who will be interested in the affair of the other horizon would be Aladim, Lala Khaima, Dagmar, so just 3 visitors. We'll see if that's true. Oh, actually, no, yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, we'll see how that goes. Okay, so we're gonna wait until the afternoon now so that we can host lunch. But the individuals who are visiting, Reverend Timothy will attend the next salon with a freshly starched clerical collar. Kokil Amirajibi, artist, socialite, burglar, an unspeakably charming woman with a particular knack for getting adopted. Daymare, Grafin Friederike Dagmar Sophia Teresa Helena Begina von Nagelsberg, if you prefer. She doesn't. Magister Hokabald, metallurgist, gourmet, corrupted immortal, and supposedly, long ago, a king's byblow. And Madame Olympe Bichet, essayist, illustrator, critic, editor of the Carisham Review. They will be enjoying pickled mushrooms. You'll learn to like them. Ham and cheese toasty, breakfast, lunch, or emergency. Fudge, all the bad things doing a good thing. Magnificent roast potatoes, it's the dripping that elevates it. Roast potatoes are a feast for the senses, but the dripping deepens the flavor profile, makes the experience continue through the machinery of the mouth to become a kind of journey. And game pie, pheasant or snipe or woodcock or rabbit, and tasty pastry. And they will be drinking TRN Limited Drinking Cocoa. TRN Spices and Savors Department markets this as the secret sacrament of the last Inca. Roscragan Whiskey, the favorite tipple of Sir David Green, 8th Librarian of Hush House. Isle Water from Brankrug's Deep Springs. And Miskissed Water, the faintest of vapors, still ghosts the water's surface. My guests take their places for lunch. Lunch and supper last longer than less formal salons, allowing for an extra interaction between your guests. So I'm going to park the activity to the salon for the next little bit. Ask about dreams. Timothy is enthusiastically recounting his previous week's sermon to Coquille, obviously flattered by her interest, although a neutral observer would notice her interest is becoming increasingly glazed and desperate. Invite a challenge. Timothy is delighted to hear that Olympia knows Georgia. He has literally hundreds of questions. He assures her about the wine, the heterodoxies, the panther's skin, the fifth cup, the myth of the Amaranus Spitaleri. Olympia massages her temples and tells him that he's allowed 10 questions. She does, however, answer each of them in detail. I like Reverend Timothy. Ask about dreams. Timothy has become aware, somehow, that Dagmar has a ruinous castle somewhere in Mittel Europa, and that this quite naturally features a chapel. He has many questions about the construction and decoration of this chapel. Dagmar is initially delighted to talk about it, but her knowledge shows its weakness under the relentless cannonade of Reverend Timothy's questions. When he unfolds a list... Sorry. Let me try this again. Timothy has become aware, somehow, that Dagmar has a ruinous castle somewhere in Mittel Europa, and that this quite naturally features a chapel. He has many questions about the construction and decoration of this chapel. Dagmar is initially delighted to talk about it, but her knowledge shows its weakness under the relentless cannonade of Reverend Timothy's questions. When he unfolds a list of further questions that he has prepared in advance, her courage fails her. She makes her excuses and heads outside for a smoke. Timothy, however, follows. Oh my god, I really wish I brought Timothy in on some of these before. A more sober tone. Add a font card. Olympia and Dagmar compare their experiences of getting drunk on Skinshuck mead. Both wonder whether they really changed shape or whether their spirits walked in the beast shape. Both agree that they'll only drink the stuff again in trustworthy company. Another somber tone, or sober tone. Reverend Timothy, having secured the attention of an attractive woman prepared to listen to his sermons, is now elucidating his previous and his next intended Christmas sermon. Coquille fastens her smile more charmingly on her face. Her eyes travel around the room from end to end. There is no escape. Oh, this has got to be my favorite salon of the game so far. This is truly wonderful. Say something witty. Add a shaft card. If I get a Timothy Hokebald encounter again, this is going to be the best ending to the salon. Hokebald has a proposal for a 9-arched wind door, which he hopes to construct on Dagmar's estate. Dagmar is clearly interested in the project, but firmly refuses to let Hokebald use her estate, or even visit it. Hokebald grinds his teeth, but keeps his temper. My guests leave happy. You've gained an additional potent memory. I'll take a quick second here to steal away another whist. Okay. So, Madame Bichet. Magister Hokebald. Daymare. Coquille got out of there real quick. We have a satisfaction. A curious hunch. Alright, and for our trouble. Door and wall. 2 Sacra Solis Invicti when the time comes. Oh, 2 door and wall. And sand stories. So, we're kind of at the end of the stream anyway, but what I'm going to do here is I will just work out my to-do list. So I'm going to say number 1. I do actually want to, invite incident. So I'll invite the incident guests. So Sand Stories, I think, is a fairly straightforward one. I don't know. It's a weird little exception that I make to the rule, but I do like the idea of matching. I do like the idea of matching. Like lesson to lesson, if I can. So Sand Stories. +1. Solutions and Separations is Knock and Moth. So the Moth is a slightly preferable option. Okay, so it's Resurgences and Emergences. That's going to be a pain in the neck, I think, but... Door and Wall is Forge and Knock. Okay, so that's pretty easy. It's going to be Surgeries and Exsanguinations, and then Spices and Savors. And then from there, it's the Sacra Solis Invicti, and that's a weird one. Oh, no, actually, it's not so weird. So Strings and Songs and Sights and Sensations. Okay, so that's a pretty... I'll confess, that is actually a pretty tall order in terms of work that I need to do. So just taking a look at this lineup, we're going to need to find... So the Moon and the Rose shouldn't be too hard for Sand Stories in the grand scheme of things. Resurgences and Emergences, I already know it's actually quite difficult to get the Grail and the Moth necessary. So I'm probably going to have a little bit of a think about how I'm going to make that one work. Surgeries and Exsanguinations, the Heart and Knock shouldn't be overwhelmingly difficult, but I do think I'm going to need to get a little clever with that one. Spices and Savors actually might be hard because it's Forge and Nectar. And then Strings and Songs and Sights and Sensations. These are the ones you really hope for, because so for music, like the great thing about any sky skills that you need to level up, you have a cheerful ditty, a beguiling melody, savage hymn, and a wistful air. So effectively, you have 4 unique memories that the visitors can't make, no matter what. And those are actually very straightforward to make too. And then on top of that, if you need more sky, you can also add a confounding parable to that. So that's 5. So for basically any level up that you want, with a very, very small cost, you are guaranteed 5 memories that will, that'll take you closer to your objective. And again, that's before you start thinking about things that could potentially be replaced by a conversation and so on and so forth. But so the first priority is definitely going to be to follow up on the affair of the Other Horizon. My invitations, so I actually want to move those up. So Corso's Grail and Lantern, Yvette is Moon and Winter. Or let me just double check this here. Yes, visitors with an interest. So sailors have a term for the compass, a compass whirl phenomenon which occurs before sightings of the city Ys. They say a compass has caught the giddy horizons. There is something of a giddy epidemic in the North Sea this year. So Corso is Grail and Lantern, Yvette has Moon and Winter. Zachary has Knock and Winter, Aaron has Moon and Moth, Douglas has Lantern and Heart, Margot has Grail and Sky, Peel has Moon and Moth, Schaller has Heart and Nectar, Aladim has Rose and Scale, Agdistis has Heart and Sky, Azita has Edge, Sky and Grail, Lala has Edge and Rose, so is she in the list? No, okay. Arthur, Edge and Lantern, Coquille, Grail and Knock, Dagmar, Knock and Rose, Eason, Heart and Sky, Fraser, Lantern and Scale, Huckabald, Grail and Forge, Olympi, Moth and Forge, and Serena, Lantern and Forge. So Aladim, Lalakaima, and Dagmar all need invitations. Which I will write right now. Take a second and put the satisfaction to bed. Oh, my bad. We already had an Aladim invitation. I just wasn't paying attention. And then... there we go. So the expectation is that we should finish the affair of the Other Horizon. We'll finish that in autumn, and then it'll sort of turn in I just need to post it. Oh, for heaven's sake. That's really bad of me. All right, I think I'm going to leave it there. But yeah, this was interesting. I'm happy that we were able to get the vet lesson done. So you kind of got a bit of a preview in terms of the plan for the next session. That'll be Monday. What I'm expecting here is that, so actually, it's kind of funny that I'm glad that I wound up making the decision to hold back on the history that I was going to write, because I did have the city unbuilt being built in Noon or Ys, but because Yvette now fears Ys, it would actually be good to think about whether or not I want her as the Secretary Enigmatic. So I have, I'd say, a reasonably good idea of about 4 of the positions, I think, of who I'd like to fill them. Maybe more, maybe 5. But yeah, I am also kind of curious to see how I mean, again, I just kind of want to see how the Lighthouse Institute works as well. So I think that'll be kind of an interesting, that'll be an interesting challenge. I'm assuming that the Lighthouse Institute is not just simply a matter of, inspire 6 people, and then it's like committing the journal at Brian Earl's U. Like I imagine that there's probably a little bit more involved. But again, with this idea that one of my potential choices for the Lighthouse Institute may fear Ys, it doesn't make as much sense to have the city unbuilt in Ys quite the same way that it did. So yeah, it's interesting. I do like the fact, obviously, like I said, it's a little weird, or not a little weird, but I do feel a bit self-conscious about the playthrough dragging a bit as I get through this information. But I am glad that I've been doing this for the simple reason that I'm still getting more out of the game. I'm still getting more details, which I like. I mean, this can kind of be taken for granted, right? The game is wonderful and deep, but even when I think I'm going a certain direction on this playthrough, I'm running into things that may potentially change that final determination. But anyways, I got to wrap up for tonight. Thank you everybody for hanging out. Let's just take a look at who's online. There's a couple people who I like hanging out with. Kibble and Bricks was here a little while ago. I know we hosted them not too long ago, but in this case, it is another Book of Hours streamer. So I think this will be a decent one to pass on to. I will also take a quick second to shout out Viridian. And the reason I'm not hosting Viridian is just I know she's been streaming for quite a while today, so she might be wrapping up reasonably soon. But yeah, please enjoy Kibble and Bricks. Stream is doing Book of Hours. I'm going to be recording some more Book of Hours episodes over the course of the weekend. I'm also going to do my best to try and enjoy some Civilization 7. I don't know. I'll let you know how I think if you care. But above all, I think I need a snack. And I'll do that after we're wrapped up. So thank you everybody for watching. We will see you on Monday. Until then, take care.